so much, and then you get caught cheating and you're still not apologizing for it. You're blaming her, actually. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your girl JD here, back with another video. So as promised, this is now part 3 of the 90-day Fiance Happily Ever After season 7 tell-all. So like I said in a previous video, or the last 2 videos, since this is part 3 now, there are now 4 parts in total to watch. So hopefully they don't magically come out of nowhere and be like, we have a part 5, because I'm getting tired. At this point, I'm getting tired of having to make notes, literally pages of notes. Like, yo, there's so much to talk about, and I be trying not to forget nothing. But oh my god, part 3 is so much. It's like I kind of want to cry inside, because I know my throat is going to be dry as hell after this. That's why I got my little cup of water. Oh child, we gonna get into it. But please do check out part 2 if you haven't yet. I'm gonna link that in the corner here, and also part 1 if you happen to find this before you watch the rest of them. But I have part 1 and 2 obviously already filmed over on my channel, so definitely check that out. But let's hop right into it. So basically in part 2, we left off with all of the couples getting drinks and hanging out, and they're pretty much taking a break. It looks as though this tell-all was filmed over a period of a couple of days, okay? So what they would do was just film a little bit for a couple hours, take a break, and the next day they would just come back, start from where they left off, and they would just wear the same clothes. It's like, how do y'all not find this like a tad bit weird, you know? But anyways, so part 3, we left off with them hanging out, having drinks, and Ed and Jovi and Andre, they're all having a conversation about how Ed gets caught cheating and basically tells Liz that she's performing, yada yada, and she's just trying to express herself, just trying to express her feelings, as if she shouldn't be disappointed in the man that just proposed to her, promised to marry her. They keep breaking off their engagement. They're now back on with their engagement. It's so much, and then you get caught cheating and you're still not apologizing for it. You're blaming her, actually, saying that she was supposed to be the one that was supporting you throughout all of this, but you just dogpiled on him like everybody else. And it was like, but you just got caught cheating though. Like, I don't know what you expect of her. So they're getting in an argument. Angela comes in and she's just like, you know what you did was wrong, okay? So let's just cut the BS, cut the malarkey. You know what you did was just stupid and wrong. So you need to go apologize, right? And he just comes out of nowhere and he's just like, I don't know how to. Like, I just don't know how to be in a relationship with her. Like, I love her. I love Liz. But I just don't know how to be in a relationship with her. I don't know how to fix it, basically. And I'm just like, Ed, stop the BS now. Stop it. Like, cut the mess, okay? I wish Angela had said that. Like, please cut the mess, honestly. You know good and well what you did. You still have not owned up to it. You still haven't apologized to Liz for doing it. You know how to fix it. You just don't want to. You don't want to admit that you were in the wrong. Say that. Don't say you don't know how to, because that's BS. So Jovi says that you shouldn't go back and forth with Liz if you don't know how to be in a relationship with her. And I have to agree. If you're gonna take what he said at face value, okay, Jovi, obviously, yeah, you would say, please break up with her. You know, like, you're just wasting her time at this point. Like, she has a whole kid. She's trying to get her life together. Like, you're just a component that's causing her unnecessary stress. So just leave her alone, because you're being selfish at this point. Liz, she continues to basically talk about Ed to Jenny and Kim, and they're of course just like, yeah, you deserve better, yada yada. And Liz is like, yeah, you know, I agree, but he needs to fess up to what he did. He needs to own what he did. And it's like, sis, can we stop? Because you know you're gonna go back to him right after this. Like, stop it. Even after this reunion, even though I'm fast forwarding a little bit, after this tell-all was done filming, people still spotted Ed and Liz frolicking together down the street, wherever it was. They had a picture of her holding hands with Ed, and they look just fine. I'm like, yo, see, this is why I think all of these shows, like I said, it's just a bunch of BS. These relationships, bunch of BS. But in my mind, you know, with Kim and Jenny, I just want to sit them down and be like, y'all know y'all ain't doing nothing right. She gonna go back to that man. So what's the point of y'all wasting y'all breath on this one? I would have stopped talking. I swear, after a certain point, if you hear me just saying, that's wild. If I'm on my 5th, that's wild, I do not give 2 craps about what you're saying to me. I would need you to stop talking because I done gave you enough, okay? I done gave you enough advice and you not taking it. So go sit down somewhere in a corner. Be sad by yourself. That's how I feel. Yara and Shida, they end up talking with each other off by themselves. And, you know, Shida, she brings up the fact that when Angela came to talk to Yara when they were in the first part of the tell-all, Angela basically comes over to Yara and making a huge fuss because Yara's like, please just sit down. Like, let's just start the show and have a conversation like normal people, right? Instead of shouting at each other. And Angela starts shouting at her and she's just like, I don't care. I don't care about all this stuff. And Shida's trying to tell her like, don't talk to her like that. Don't get in her face like that, Angela. And I was like, Shida, you know good and well Angela do not give 2 craps about y'all little small individuals, okay? All she gotta do is sit on y'all. Let me stop. Shida was like, yeah, I tried to have your back in that situation, in this conversation presently, right? And I'm like, Shida, please, girl, have a seat. I mean, she was sitting, but have several seats. Shida was basically talking to Yara about how she was feeling kind of nauseous and stuff like that. And Yara was looking at her like, girl, you pregnant? Like, what? And then Shida was like, nah, I couldn't be. Like, it's probably just me getting ready for my period. That's a possibility in itself, but y'all. Anyways, we get back to the couples being on set. They start the show again. On set, Ed literally takes the time to apologize to everyone except for Liz. And I can't remember who it was, but they asked Ed like, hey, did you give Liz her apology yet? Liz straight up was like, I got a half-assed one, and then I was told that I was performing when I reacted. So yeah. And I just thought that was kind of funny because that's exactly what happened. It really wasn't an apology at all. It wasn't even a half-assed one. It was just a conversation really talking about himself and how he feels, his feelings, you know, because that's all that matters in this relationship, clearly. He goes on, he says, that's not how I saw it. You know, yesterday was the worst day of my life. I'm like, you literally said that with no emotion, Ed. Like, how am I supposed to take what you just said seriously? We end up talking about Kim and Usman, and I had so much to say about this one. The couples with a lot more heavier baggage was in part 3. Okay, let me just clarify that. So we talk about Kim and Usman, and then we talk about Bilal and Shida, and then we get into Jenny and Sumit close to the end. So it was heavy. Like, I had pages of notes. I'm flipping at the moment, okay? So Kim and Usman, they're definitely done. They're broken up. I don't think I mentioned this in my other video. Check that out here. But I did a whole video breakdown of Kim and Usman, their relationship over like, what, 2 years or a year and a half? I don't know how long. But anyway, they were on 90 Day Fiance, and then now they're on Happily Ever After. But yeah, their whole relationship I did a breakdown of in that video. Check that out. But, you know, they're definitely done. They're broken up. And Kim says that Usman is her best friend still. Even after they've broken up, they still have conversations. They text each other, talk to each other all the time. They're best friends in her mind. But the thing is, from the jump, I personally feel like they were best friends trying to escalate the relationship into something else because of Kim. Kim wanting something deeper and more meaningful than just a friendship. Like I said in that video, I personally feel that Usman just felt because she came all the way to Africa, or Nigeria to be more precise, came all the way over there to see him, spend all that money, that maybe I should have her leave as being my girlfriend, okay? And I was like, don't just do that just because you feel kind of sorry for her. If you're not interested in this woman this way, let her go. Don't waste her time. But he sure enough did, but we'll talk about that later. Usman went on, he started talking about the fact that she couldn't give him a child, and that was kind of the root of a lot of their problems, and ultimately why they broke up. And I'm like, Usman, you know good and well that was not the reason. It might have been one of the reasons, but you know good and well that was not the main reason as to why y'all broke up, because you already had in your mind how you was gonna fix that problem, and that's literally what took up all these episodes. It was just trying to find out how he could still have his kid and be with Kim. So let's not go there. So they bring out Jamal, who's Kim's son, and Jamal was not a fan of this relationship from the beginning, but he was trying to give Usman a chance. He showed up, you know, Usman gave him some gifts, and they had that whole respect talk, okay, which I think is so bizarre. I'm like, how could he respect you when you're only a couple years older than him? Like, get out of here. But moving on. He basically comes on and he's like, you know, when it comes to my mom, aka Kim, you basically played the crap out of her. Like, you played with her emotions, and on top of that, you kind of guilt tripped her into breaking up with you, okay? Because Kim ultimately was the one in their last argument that they had before they officially broke up and Usman drove away. She was the one that walked out of the hotel room they were in and was like, yeah, we're done. I'm done with this. So she broke up with him, ultimately. But I think, yeah, he did kind of guilt trip her a little bit. But, you know, Kim, I think, is very emotional. And I don't think it was necessarily a guilt trip. I think it might have been a part of the plan, but I don't think he was ultimately trying to break up with her right then and there. I don't think he was expecting to get away that easily, that quickly. But he was just like, well, there's a door. I'm going through it. Honestly, that's how I feel about it. Everybody, all the other couples, they're giving their 2 cents about it, and they're agreeing with Jamal, saying he's a scammer, he's a scammer. And I was like, I personally don't think he's a scammer. I think he was not the best partner, okay? However, how good of a partner can you be when you have such a big age gap between the two of you? Y'all want different things. Y'all are in 2 very different stages of your lives. So it wasn't gonna work to begin with, you know what I'm saying? But I don't think he was a scammer. I think he delivered on what he said he was gonna deliver on. But personally, I don't think he really liked her like that. I think it was more so a relationship of convenience in my mind. I just personally don't think he would have done all that they did during those episodes if he was scamming her. I just don't think he would have done all that. That's way too much work. And personally, I'm too lazy for all that, you know? Jada, she takes that time to come out and say that when it comes to Usman and Kim's relationship, she turns to Kim and's like, listen, Usman clearly liked you, but just as a friend. He did not love you like that, okay? He loved you as a friend. Nothing less and nothing more, okay? But y'all still decided to have a relationship. And then Usman out of nowhere is just like, but we had sex. And I'm like, you do realize you could have sex with someone that you're not in love with, right? Like, but the thing is, other people were like, are you kidding me? They brought up that same point. Like, you know, you could just mess around with someone sexually that you're not really interested in. And basically he was like, nah, if I loved you, that's the only way I'm gonna be able to have sex with you. And it's just like, yeah, that sounds like BS to me, but okay. So from then on, he keeps talking about his culture this, his culture that, and how things are in Nigeria, how things are in his family, and how everything that he was saying to Kim was right, and they should just take his word for things. And I'm like, the amount of times this man had to talk about his culture, it was a little aggravating. It's like, I get it. Obviously, you're very different in terms of culture and a cultural background from Kim coming from America and you being from Nigeria. I get it, okay? That's obvious. But the fact that he kept using it to kind of manipulate her into doing certain things, that's the part I didn't like. I did not like that. So they also brought up the scene when he went to go meet with his possible second wife that Usman's mom was trying to get him hooked up with. And I guess Kim didn't know ultimately that he got her number, but I think Sean is the host's name, right? Sean? I think Sean asked Usman directly, like, hey, did you ever talk to this person? Did you ever talk to her after that meetup? And he never answers the question. He never answers that question. And he pretty much just kind of dodges it and just like, well, I do what my mom says and that's the way of the culture. I was like, Usman, just shut up at this point. Like, just shut up. You are digging a deeper hole here. They discussed the whole breakup argument. Usman basically saying that he was sacrificing way more than Kim. And I brought that up in my other video too. I just feel like when you start talking about who sacrificed more to be in that relationship, yeah, it's like, it's just done at that point. It's just done. And then Kim, after that whole conversation and exchange with everybody, she's just like, you know what? I kind of reached this point where I think I just kind of want to give up on love, take an RV and just travel everywhere. I think she said RV, or, you know, just travel everywhere nonetheless. And I was like, Kim, I think you might just need to take that break for real. If you happen to find someone, okay, great, but at your age, let's be honest, the chances of her, you know, just finding someone, it is a little low. Is the chance still there? Yes. Probability versus possibility. In this case, it'll be more so a possibility that she could find someone that she'll be holding on to. But right now, I think she just needs to take that break because I think she just needs a minute to just love on herself and really tap into what she wants in her life at that point and then move forward. After that. After this, they take a break, they go backstage, they have some lunch. Shida, she points out the fact that Liz has something on her finger. She's just like, what's that on your finger? And Liz basically says that she feels weird without her engagement ring. Like, she's so used to having her engagement ring on, it's just weird to not have anything on her finger where the engagement ring would be. And I was like, what? I would not feel any type of ways of taking off an engagement ring from someone that gave it to me that already broke their promise to me. Like, I would have no problems taking that off. I would feel no ways, okay? I would not pretend to be engaged to someone with some random thing on my finger. Like, nah. But after that, Ed and Liz, they rehashed the whole cheating thing, and they talk about the dating website again. I was like, oh my god, we're getting nowhere with this conversation. Ed is in straight denial mode. Liz, she's trying to get an apology out of him for something. Still not happening. And then Bilal and his big mouth, okay? I think after Ed said that he liked what Bilal did and that he's kind of Bilal's fan at this point, has Bilal in like defense mode and it's just like, I need to defend my one fan. And he comes to Ed's defense, and then Liz walks away because she's just like, I'm not getting anywhere with this conversation, which she wasn't. And then Shida goes off to talk to her, and then Ed stays with Jenny. And Jenny's going off on Ed, and Ed is just talking to her about her relationship with Sumit and how her relationship isn't perfect. And I'm like, Ed, if we're going to consider whose relationship has the most problems here though, and the most serious of problems, it's you and Liz. If we're going to really talk about it here, let's really discuss it, okay? In terms of problems, Jenny and Sumit really only have issues with Sumit's parents at the moment. Besides that, nothing really wrong with their relationship. So yeah, but anyways, Shida is trying to give Liz this pep talk, and she's just like, well, how are y'all gonna move forward with your relationship if that is your intention, to move forward with him? Which, like, yeah, we already know the answer is yes. She intends on moving forward with him because she's hooked on this man, okay? It doesn't matter how toxic he is, how much he manipulates her, how much he treats her like garbage. Yeah, she's just gonna stick beside him. She's just like, he needs to kind of fess up to what he did, and he needs to own what he did. So basically what she said to Kim and Jenny the night before. So after this break, they go back on set, and Bilal and Shida are now the ones on the hot seat. So we find out that after their New York trip, that kind of crashed and burned a little bit. We find out that they did decide to actually move forward with having kids, which I thought was cool. But Bilal, when he got asked about them trying, he said, yeah, we tried like 2 or 3 times. And I was like, 2 or 3 times? You mean like every night? You know what I'm saying? Like, is that what you meant to say, every night? You expect her to get pregnant after just 2 or 3 times? At her age? Okay, moving on. There was an awkward, never before seen clip from when they went to herbalists to help with like their fertility troubles. I have to be honest, that was really weird. They was talking about how many times a night they do it, the M word. I was like, oh my god, this is awkward. I wouldn't want anyone to film it, let alone watch it and then comment on it after. I would feel so weird. So we find out that after all of this, Shida doesn't even want to have a baby right now. And I'm like, Shida, what the hell? Like, I was like, what is happening right now? Someone can't be serious. She literally harassed the crap out of this man to get an answer as to when they were gonna start having babies. And now this man is on board to have babies. And you don't want no baby no more? Not right now anyway, she says. She's talking about she's focused on her business now. So she doesn't want to have a kid right now. And I'm like, Shida, several seats, because you're not making sense, okay? The other reason she's saying, number 1 is that she's focusing on her business. Number 2 is that Bilal doesn't fully trust her, and she says that's stemming from the fact that he's not really open with her, and on top of that, with their finances, he doesn't want to have a joint account. So things like that. She's saying she doesn't feel like she's trusted by him, which I can understand. Obviously, you wouldn't want to have a child for someone who doesn't trust you. You know, that'd be weird. Still, I just think it's really wild that you spend all this time asking your husband for a child, and then when he agrees to have a child with you, you're just like, no, never mind. Like, what is that about? During this time is when they bring Bilal's friend Chris out. They bring both friends out, okay, for Bilal and also Shida, but we start off with Chris, Bilal's friend, and of course he comes to bat for Bilal, you know, about the whole money situation and how when it comes to what Bilal is feeling about that in terms of the distrust factor, he was basically saying that he should just kind of let Bilal do his thing pretty much. And I was just kind of like, well, that was to be expected because you're his friend, but it is still kind of weird that y'all don't at least want a joint account alongside your own separate accounts. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that's weird. Shida's friend Utress, who we saw during the show when they went to New York, child, she did not give her the best advice, and she did get called out about that later. But first, he was basically saying how Bilal wasn't being transparent with Shida about the date that they were gonna have kids. Or start trying to have a child. Just an argument from there. They did not like each other, okay? He basically, like I said, was taking up for Bilal and trying to explain his side of things. And yeah, I think he was just trying to take the male perspective. He was basically saying how nobody was hearing Bilal's side of things. They were just trying to hear out Shida. And that's when Utress is just like, well, I'm only Shida's friend. Like, I'm here for the interest of Shida. Why would I care about Bilal? And I was like, you got a point. You got a point. If I was somebody's friend, yes, I wouldn't want to ruin their marriage ultimately. I don't think that would be in my friend's best interest to ruin her marriage, but I am going to say something if I feel as though it doesn't sound right, okay? I'm your friend at the end of the day, not his. I was with her with that, okay? But she lost me when she thought it was okay to tell Shida to just skip her birth control one day or for a couple of months and just see what happens. But that's when Shida told her that he actually does wrap it up and he protects himself. Everyone kind of called her out for that, and she was just like, yeah, you know, I personally don't care. And I was like, okay, at least she's standing in it, but you know, still, I do think that was wrong, definitely. Ed kept butting in, and that's when Chris was like, well, I'm here to defend all men. You know, I'm here for all the men around the world that have to deal with similar things. And I was like, oh my God, here we go. That's when we gonna start talking about the things that I talk about over on my main channel, which I don't have a problem with. Obviously, I do feel like the whole men's rights thing, yeah, it is not talked about nearly as much. And I don't think it's given as much attention as the other side of things from the female perspective. So that is unfair. It is a double standard. And yeah, I was just kind of like, oh God, this is probably gonna go downhill from here. That's usually how people start the conversation to start an argument, really. So Chris, he also says some interesting things to Utress and also technically Shida as well, because she's sitting there listening to the whole thing. And he asked questions like, why are you taking advice from a woman that has no husband and also has no kids? Do you want to be single like her? And yada yada. I was like, oh my God, I can't. I really can't. But finally we reached the end of their segment, and Bilal actually takes Shida out into the center of the stage, and he just kind of proposes like, you know, do you want to go half on a baby? I'll just play that clip for you guys real quick.
Oh my God. What?
Would you have my baby? Would you want to go half on a baby? Oh, how cute.
That is so cute. Oh my God. Oh, if you think I'm cute, you should see my mommy. Oh my God.
Is that a yes?
Oh, let me cry with you guys.
So I just thought it was really cute. Of course, Shida got really emotional. The thing is, she was saying that it kind of changes her mind a little bit on waiting for a child, but I still personally think in terms of the timeline, it's not changing, you know? I mean, yeah, I understand her need for trust from Bilal, but it's not changing anything. So I was like, girl, if you don't jump on having that baby and stop playing, yeah. So we move on to Jenny and Sumit, and you know, they were talking about how much they miss each other, with Sumit having to be in India still, and Jenny was in New York by herself. And Sean, the host, she asked them, you know, would you describe yourself as codependent? And they were like, yeah, in some ways, you know, I definitely would consider us as codependent on each other. We do things for each other, so yeah, we would consider ourselves codependent. And I was like, okay, that was a good way to answer that, but I still would not want to be codependent necessarily or entirely on my partner. I would like to do some things independently for sure. But yeah, anyways, moving on. So Sumit talks about the whole adoption and surrogacy thing, but he in the show had only talked about it with his family members. He was basically saying that he was thinking about that, but he never told Jenny. And this is the first time Jenny even heard about it, when she was at the tell-all. And she is just like, he knows I don't want kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, he knows I don't want any more kids. And she stresses that. And he also is just like, yeah, I told my parents that I originally don't want any more kids as well. But if it would make them happy, you know? And it was just kind of like, oh God. Runs into the question of like, you know, are you telling a lie or are you trying to make peace? You know, like there's a difference for sure. Are you just trying to say something just to appease them, or are you really genuinely trying to have a child? Like what's happening here? So the other couples, they were saying because of that being a possibility that he actually might want kids, even though he told Jenny he doesn't want any, and he also married her, so I mean he knows she can't have kids. With that being said, all the couples, they were like, what if Sumit's scared of you? You know, and looking at their personalities and the relationship dynamic, it does seem like Jenny, even though she's not that loud of a person, she does seem to get angry a lot, and I can understand how Sumit would try to keep certain things from her so that she doesn't get angry at him. So they brought up a pretty interesting point. Sumit's family joins in without his mom, of course, which I was like, okay, that doesn't really surprise me, because the mom seemed to be a lot more emotional about Sumit marrying Jenny in the show, way more than his dad or his brother and his wife. So that didn't really surprise me. But Sumit's brother and his sister-in-law, basically, they were saying how they were good with Jenny. They actually go out to dinner every now and again. They talk on a pretty daily basis almost, so they're good. But when it comes to the relationship between Jenny and the mom, it is like non-existent, because the mom just doesn't like Jenny. Let's just get that straight. She does not like Jenny. Clearly she wished Sumit married literally anybody else, just not Jenny. They talk about the whole secret marriage thing, and then of course how the family reacted. Like I said, I don't think they were as shocked really as the mom was. I think the mom took it the hardest. I think his dad and his brother and his wife, I think personally they could really care less about the situation. I think they just want him to be happy, which is why, you know, the father had no problem giving his blessing, but ultimately when it comes to the mom, like there's like dang near no relationship. But Sumit still talks to his mom. Like it took a while for them to get on a good, you know, relationship basis where they actually talk to each other in a friendly way. But in terms of Jenny, yeah, it's not happening right now. There's no family events that Jenny can attend right now. But Sumit said he would have no problem with Jenny's blessing still going without her to the family events. Ed was pretty much talking about how when it comes to him and Liz, he most definitely wouldn't go to any family events that, like, for example, his mom would have without bringing Liz. And I was like, Ed, let's be honest, y'all relationship is hanging on by a thread at the moment. You just saying that to sound good right now. Please shut up. Stay out of everybody's business, please. But Usman buds in and he starts talking about the culture difference between like Americans and outside of America. And I kind of have to agree. I do think that Americans tend to not really understand the importance. I do think that Americans typically, at least on this show anyway, they don't understand, I feel, the importance of your parents in your life for those that are outside of America. I have to be honest, coming from a Caribbean household and being Bahamian, what your parents say usually goes, okay? Now, when it comes to your relationships, however, yeah, you could do whatever you want. But in terms of like other things, you do hold what your parents say in pretty high esteem, usually. I would not say that every American is like this in terms of not really thinking that, you know, parents are important, family's important. I'm not saying that at all. But I've just noticed watching 90 Day Fiance that typically the American in the relationship on these 90 Day Fiance episodes typically doesn't really understand why the family is so important. But thankfully, when they talk about the whole visa thing, because at the end, Jenny was considering going to America with Sumit and basically filing for his visa, or a spouse visa, whatever you call it, for him to move over there with her, but she hasn't filed any paperwork yet. So I guess she's still holding out hope that they could stay in India and just work things out. When we go back to Angela and Michael, unfortunately, Jovi had done some investigations, okay, over on Instagram of Michael's Instagram. And basically Angela was saying how she knows Michael so well that she could tell that wasn't really his account. It was a fake account, yada yada. And I was like, oh my God, how are we doing this again? And they break out into yet another argument. Okay, she of course keeps cutting him off like she usually does, and Michael has to wait his turn to talk. Someone points out how it's raining super heavy in the background, right? And how it's also raining heavy in Usman's footage. And they were like, oh, Usman and Michael probably in the same hotel. And Angela just loses it from there. And I'm like, why do you care? Usman, I'm pretty sure he just did this just to kind of get on Angela's nerves a little bit. But he was like, if we're in the same hotel and we choose to meet up, like, why do you care? Like, why is that any of your business? You can't tell two grown men who they can and can't hang out with. Like, what? And of course, Angela makes it a point to point out the fact that that's her husband and yada yada, right? And I'm like, girl, nobody cares at this point. Your relationship and marriage is holding on by a thread. So Michael, of course, tries to make himself look like the good husband, comes to Angela's rescue, and he's just like, don't talk to her like that. And I was like, he didn't even say anything crazy. Usman didn't even say anything that was disrespectful to Angela. Like, you know, but anyways, she doesn't trust anyone with Michael. That's what she says. She doesn't trust anybody to be around Michael. And I'm like, if you reach to that point, I think your marriage is done. For you to say you don't trust anyone to be around your husband, anyone at all, you got major problems. Yeah. I think y'all might be heading for a divorce there. They have another break. Angela calls Michael to tell him that she's not okay with him being in the same hotel with Usman. And then that leads to more arguing, because it was like, how you gonna tell this man like where he could be? Like, this is where the show put him. They put them both in the same hotel. What you want them to do? At least they not in the same room. Like, dang. It was really childish. And Angela says either they divorce or he gets help. And I just think that's so typical of Angela, because again, she thinks that everything that she does is okay and she does nothing wrong in the relationship. That's the reason why I didn't feel bad for her getting cheated on in part 2. But anyway, I honestly think they're just heading towards divorce at this point, because there's no talking when it comes to Angela. There's no talking things out. And, you know, Michael, he still chooses to meet up with Usman to kind of straighten things out ultimately, because he didn't really like how that conversation went between him, Usman, and Angela. So that's pretty much where they end. But y'all, part 3 was so heavy. I was like, oh my god, there's so much to discuss here. I'm out of breath at this point. I need to go eat. And like, I'm hungry. All the talking that I did burned some calories, so now I'm hungry again. Anyways, y'all, let me know what your thoughts were on part 3 down in the comments, and then also tune in for part 4 that's going to be coming out soon. I promise I'm going to watch that probably either today or tomorrow, and then I'll probably make a video about that shortly. But y'all let me know your thoughts on this one. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.